Broken Tea Society. I am back here with your official short game coach for the Index Experiment, Mr. Parker McLachlin, aka Short Game Chef. Coach, we're in your hood this time. We're at TPC Scottsdale. It's beautiful. It's going to get a lot hotter. Last time I saw you, we worked through the stock pitch that all the guys on tour are using. We got a lot of questions on Discord about how you take that sort of stock pitch motion and you move it into something a little longer. 30, 40 yards, that shot that you have all the time during rounds, especially if you're punching out or getting close on par fives, right? So we need to get this up and down. We've got a 35-yard shot here. So talk us through how you're going to take that motion that we built and sort of lengthen it.
Yeah, so the way that we're going to, change our distance is length of backswing, but also speed of our rotation on the way through. And when I say rotation, I mean like our trunk, our upper body, our rib cage. That's the rotation that I'm looking for. So if this is my, stock, probably 25 in the air, length of backswing, I'm probably gonna go a little further if I'm gonna go to 35, somewhere in here, and then I'm really gonna rip through it with my rotation. I don't wanna feel like I'm having to time this up with my hands. I think that's a very tough proposition, especially for an amateur golfer that plays once a week or once a month. If you try to get these small little muscles to react and just try to guess, this is gonna be 35 yards, we're gonna be in a tough spot. You're not gonna be able to achieve that every single time. It's much easier to do managing that speed with the bigger muscles in your trunk and in your upper body to be able to move through it this way.
Are you a clock position guy on the way back, or is that something you have to develop for yourself?
Yeah, so some people are. Some people kind of sense it this way and pay attention to where their lead arm is. I like to sort of see it as to where the club is. So the longer this club goes, the more ball speed I'm going to kind of have. So if it's up in here, I'm probably hitting it around 60, 70 yards. So if I'm more down in this area here, I know I'm going to hit it closer to 30, closer to 40, closer to 50. So I like to kind of visualize it there, and I can kind of see it in my practice swing.
Yep, 9 o'clock, just parallel.
Yep,
yeah.
And that's where I like to visualize it there and be able to see, okay, 30, 40, 50.
Okay.
And then you can also, you can also go down in loft as well. You can go from a 60 to a 56, down to a 52, and just make the same type of pitch shot motion.
Yep. And
they'll start coming out a little bit faster for you.
And now talk to me about your club choice here. I mean, this is a pretty flat shot. There's nothing we have to carry. You can let it release if you want. Talk to me about your club choice and then what flight you were looking for on something like this.
Yeah, so like on this one, if nothing's in front of us, like I can actually go down and grab a 56 degree. Okay.
Okay.
So you can hit a 60 or a 56. I mean, you could even hit a 52 here as well. But I've got a 56 here. Sometimes off of Bermuda grass, I think it's kind of a neat little trick to go down and loft just a little bit. It helps work through the turf a little bit better. Usually the lower the loft, the higher the bounce. So most players will have, a 60 degree with low bounce. They'll go higher bounce with their 56 and their 52. So those higher bounces will be easier through some sticky Bermuda grass, which is really helpful.
Huge disclaimer, Bermuda. So he's cheating here, but we'll do it anyway. Let's see you hit a few.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So like a little skinny, worked out okay.
Yep.
Right? But what, the miss that I don't want to have here is to go, that's the miss I don't want to have. And that's where I get a lot of play here. And this ball just, my club gets stuck in the ground.
Yep.
So that's the miss that I want to really avoid if I'm the amateur player. I want to make sure that I'm creating a nice wide bottom so that I can feel like I'm brushing this grass. And then the next one's probably going to go in, right?
So talk to me about ball position here, shaft angle. What are we looking for out of the setup? What changes from the stock pitch?
So I think that, it's obviously a great question because setup is so massively important for some of these shots. The swing is not going to be that long, right? So if I'm set up and I've got my feet wide and I've got my hands punched way forward, I see this a lot with a lot of my clients that come to see me, my amateur clients. They look like this at setup. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look like this at setup, from your view, doesn't it look like I'm going to hit this about 120 yards?
Looks like you're going to smoke it.
Smoke it, right?
Yeah.
I'd say most tour players, their feet are about a club head apart. So if you can get in a spot here, now all of a sudden it looks like, okay, it looks like you're gonna bring some finesse and some softness to this shot.
Yes.
So ball position is gonna be off my left heel. I like to keep the ball position inside of my feet. So if my feet are close enough, I can't really mess up my ball position that much. If I get my feet wide, this ball position could sneak all the way over here. It could sneak all the way back here.
Yep.
Right, and I can still kind of feel like it's in between my feet. Now, if my feet are close together, now I'm in a spot where it's like, okay, well, that ball position isn't going to go too far offline.
So I think when we get into this range right here, the tendency for a lot of people, aka myself, is to feel like we need some sort of weight transfer. We need some sort of help, especially if you've got a lot of loft, if you got a 60, right? So I think that's where the wider stance comes into play,
Yep.
and also a lot of swaying and
Yep.
stuff like that. But you're saying that we're getting that speed from up here.
The rotation. Yeah. So I don't want you to feel like you're swaying into the right side and then moving laterally into your left side. Really what I want to feel is that I'm pivoting. I feel a little bit of pressure going into this instep of the right foot, but then I'm also feeling like on the way through, I've definitely moved weight this direction.
Yeah. The foot's come off the ground.
Yeah, the foot's come off the ground, and you can almost see, you know, the torque here that I'm putting rotating around, but I'm not in a space where I'm working laterally back and forth, right? I want to stay away from that. For me, I like to feel, you know, feet closer together. I like to feel like I'm really gonna feel I try to feel some width on this backswing. And so by width, I mean, this would be narrow. Look at my wrist especially, and this would be wide. I like to feel some width here. This width here is gonna allow me, hopefully, some shallowness on the way into the golf ball, which again will help me to engage the back edge of the club, the bounce, and help me to glide across the turf. That's ideally what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a nice wide bottom so that if I do miss hit it, it still turns out okay. That's ideally the goal for me. So if I get narrow, I can get steep, and I've got to be really perfect, right? We've seen the people where they're like, okay, let's put it back of the stance, go up, and I hit ball first, and it's like it comes out, but then it's screaming, right? That's sort of that one that you're like, hey, I got to get ball first. It's like, well, you don't really need to get ball first, right? If you look at some of like the high speed videos, you look at these players, it's like they're brushing the grass back here.
Zero angle.
Right. Yeah, I mean, potentially, like I look at Keith Mitchell a lot, and he's like, boy, he comes in there so shallow that he's brushing the grass back in here.
Yep.
Now, if he were to come in steep and hit the grass back there, it would stick and dig. But because he's coming in so shallow, he's able to brush this grass and still hit a gorgeous shot that has some softness and some spin to it. So I'm going to try to create some width on the back.
Don't do it.
So, you know, we're a little bit into the grain Bermuda grass here, so I'm getting a little divot that kind of kicks up. That's just sort of how, if it was down grain Bermuda, I would see no real interaction, no real divot. So, you know, to me, it's all about finding a good way to create some width. That width is going to allow you the ability to engage the bounce on the way through and create some shallowness. I remember this funny story that Lee Trevino would tell, and Lee Trevino's always great with stories. He was doing this thing, Matt Kuchar and I were there, and Lee was holding court and talking story, and Matt was asking about hitting like a 50 to 70 yard shot. And so Lee says, all right, Matt, go to the top of your backswing. And Matt would go to the top of his backswing, and Lee says, okay, take your right hand off the club and see if you can reach the top of the head. He's like, yeah, I can reach the top of the head. And Lee says, well, then you're a shitty wedge player. Matt's like, what are you talking about? And Lee says, okay, now go to the top here. Now go like this. He says, now can you reach the top of the head? He says, no. He says, now you've just become a great wedge player, right?
Yeah.
And so just that little bit of narrowness versus width, right? That's a massive deal, especially even at the highest level, but almost more importantly, for the player that's a recreational player, that doesn't have the time to practice as much. For that player, that width is like massively important to help with consistency and just to engage the bounce, to have the bounce be your friend and get you out of some jams, because you're not going to hit every shot perfect.
Sure. So one question on the width portion. I've been working since I worked with you the first time.
Yeah.
I've been working on getting this thing wide.
Yep.
The danger I find, or the fear, is when you get real wide, is coming in and a little scoop,
Yep.
right? It coming out soft.
Yep.
So where are we going wrong when we get wide? Because I think a lot of the collapsing of the wrist, a lot of the ball first, is to ensure that we get the ball there,
Yep.
right? To avoid that real soft, weak right.
Yep.
So where is that? What's the added piece to get that coming out nice and strong like you have?
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that I do with my clients a lot is a pause drill, a freezer drill. So you go to the top and you're like, okay, I'm gonna just freeze right here. Now you can see I haven't really built up anything, right? There's no real ball speed built up. I haven't gone this way, right? My weight isn't like fully stacked on my front foot. I've just gone here. I'm pretty neutral with everything. Now from here, can I hit it 25, 30 yards? If you were standing in my shoes, could you hit it 25, 30 yards from here?
I mean, I would have to rotate aggressively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So if I can get in a spot where I get you to say, okay, I'm gonna go here, pause, and I mishit it, but the point is how fast I rotated through it, and it's a tricky little drill to do, but if you can do that, like especially off of a mat, it's really good to just teach yourself, like if you have one in your backyard or in your house, get to here, pause, and then just rotate through. That's gonna help you understand how to deliver the speed properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm gonna try that pause.
Yeah, let's go.
So we've got narrow stance, ball's just slightly off the left heel.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Talking about in here.
That's your feeling right there. Yep. There you go.
A little thin.
Yep.
No grab though.
Yeah, it's not again, it's sort of like, I'm gonna put this up here just so you have awareness. Yep, there you go. Now rotate through. There you go. So the point is, like, if you're rotating, you're actually, it's sort of a shallowing piece,
Yeah.
right? It's a shallowing mechanism. So the fact that you and I both were hitting it a little thin was because we're rotating so aggressively through it. Yep. Yeah, so that was like a little slower rotation. You kind of see how it came out.
And
a little
there's the
softer.
scoop, right?
Exactly right. So a good thing for you maybe would be to visualize hitting like a little draw here.
Okay.
Like I want you to feel like you're gonna hit ever so slightly a little 6-inch draw. Hit me a low 6-inch draw here. That was closer.
That was very nice.
Yeah.
It looked like a draw to my eye.
But I want you to on this one I want you to exaggerate it. I want you to feel like you're almost hitting your right pocket on the way back.
Wow.
Okay? Does that
Like
make
here?
sense? Yep. Go ahead, set up one more time. And then I want this handle to be up a little higher. Get a little closer to it. Okay. So then I want you to, nope, this way. Like more, yeah, that way.
Oh boy.
Ball flight came down,
Yep.
but you're still a little bit out.
I cannot believe
you need
that.
to like that's a feel you really need to exaggerate. So another good one is like, if we're trying to come in shallow into this ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it make sense to take it back as low as
Shallow.
you can?
Yeah, start shallow.
Start it as low as you can on the way back. So I'm gonna be down here. I want you to feel like you're putting it in my hand. Yeah, there you go. I don't care if this goes like 12 yards. Just feel like that. Yes. Okay, do it again. So we're trying to get the feel of just super exaggeration here. So just, yeah, there you go. That was actually closer. Like that's the miss that I'm looking for though.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let me see you hit a few more and then we'll wrap here.
Let me see if I can try to hit like a little draw.
There it is.
I mean that to me
almost
is,
a little draw flight.
Yeah, and that to me is like ideal for me. So as I sort of key in on like getting the shaft back to a neutral spot, for me, that really helps me from being this way. Because intuitively, if I haven't practiced like I haven't in the last month, right, I'm going to go back to being this way. So I got to really key in on like really feeling like I'm getting this shaft back into a neutral spot. That's a good key for me. For you, it would be more like you need to feel like this thing is working well behind you, and then it will actually get you in a spot where it's going to be like really playable and really good. Once you hit a couple more, we'll see.
Sure.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's the flighted spinny one we're looking for.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But you went way to the extreme there.
No, I think I hit my right foot.
Yeah. Dude, that was really good,
Yeah,
man.
thanks, man. So to recap, whatever your tendency is, do the opposite.
Yes.
But as far as basic principles, we're looking for narrow stance.
Yep.
Not a lot of sway in the lower body.
Correct.
And just extreme rotation.
Yep. Yep. And don't be afraid of that club working on an arc slightly in, right? You don't need this club to stay outside your hands in your chipping and pitching motion. I think that's something that's been sort of propagated over the last 40 years. It just doesn't need to happen. This thing can work back this way. You look at the Patrick Reeds and the Matt Kuchars, even the Cam Smiths, like they get it slightly behind their hands on the way back. Kevin Noss, like a lot of the great wedgers get it behind them, weirdly enough. So don't be afraid of allowing that club to arc behind you. Don't put it there on purpose, but if you pivot and allow it to get there, at that point, then you're in a good spot.
Yeah. All right, so if you missed the first segment, if we're doing our job properly, there should be a thumbnail up here which takes you to the stock pitch, and then come back and watch the longer version.
Yep.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it, man.